This is Gretchen, the Verdant Crafter. Today I'm going to be showing you 10 cards I made using the SSS Stamp August 2018 card kit. This card kit was called Mandy's Flowers. This card kit included 2 pieces of cardstock from SSS Stamp, cotton candy, and 120-pound white. It included this adorable miniature bottle of bubblegum blush crystal drops. These Doodlebug Tiny Hearts sprinkles, they're enamel shapes. 2 large stamp sets. One is called Mandy's Flowers and it's 6 inches by 8 inches. The other was a background cling called Modern Flowers. There was also a piece of natural twine and that one sheet of powder blue lace luxury embossed paper from Tonic. And of course, 12 pieces of 6x6 paper from Bo Bunny in the Early Bird collection. I love the colors in these papers, especially the yellow, and I love the geometric shapes. One of the things that I did differently was I took this kit, I sat outside, I enjoyed nature, and I drew a bunch of card sketches of things that I thought I might like to do. Then I came in and actually used the kit. So this video is a little choppy because I wanted to cut out some of the stuff that's repetitive, like cutting out the pieces, because of course this kit didn't come with coordinating dies, and heat embossing, putting foam tape on things, gluing things down. So I do apologize for the choppiness, and I apologize for no videos for a long time. This has been a crazy summer, but it's been a good summer. You may know that I had a concussion in May, and unfortunately I'm still recovering a little from it. So this summer was a lot of not doing much of anything. Okay, so back to the kit. I gold heat embossed that one stamp and cut it out. Now I'm using the background stamp and spun sugar distress oxide ink to stamp on. I cut out a circle that was a little bigger than the inside circle of the stamp, and I put that down with masking paper just to block out that area and make sure it wasn't stamped on. Now I'm going to be gold heat embossing Thank You in the middle. For this kit, I used Altenews Rose Gold Embossing Powder. This is a very similar color to Simon Says Stamp's Antique Gold Embossing Powder, which was really what I wanted to use. I just couldn't find it. Right now, I've put the spun sugar onto my Tonic Glass Media Mat. Sorry for the glare. I'm still figuring things out. And then I'm going to put, I believe it was Mowed Lawn or Forest Moss Distress Oxide ink, or maybe Crushed Olive down. I'm just using a water brush to pick it up and color in the flower and the leaves. Then I'm going to use foam tape to pop it up onto the front of my card. This card is very simple. I think it would be pretty easy to make a whole bunch of them, especially now I'm trying to figure out where I want the flower. If you did it more assembly style, I think it would be fun to make these in a variety of colors, and it would certainly be easy to add extra embellishments to this. So I think that I'm going to get out, in this case it's going to be the Hero Arts lacquer pen, and use those as crystal drops. Oh, I didn't put any of those on. So we are jumping into card number 2. This card is fairly simple, and this card was one of the reasons I really loved my glass media mat. It made cutting out shapes really, really easy, especially when I was cutting against a glass media mat. And so I stamped and then cut out the picket fence. I stamped it twice so that it was longer, and you can see on the paper it's blue and it looks a little bit like it's rhinestones or something like that. They're hexagons. I've stamped and heat embossed Thank You. Now I'm gluing down, or going to glue down, my picket fence and cut off the edges. You could also pop that up with foam tape, and I think that would look great. I was just thinking it would be easier to go through the mail without foam tape, which then becomes redundant because I use foam tape on some of the embellishments. So Here I'm just going to glue this down. I believe that this is 3/4 of an inch smaller than the size of my card, which is an A2 card, 4¼ inches by 5½ inches. Here I'm using some small foam squares that have been cut in triangles, and I'm popping up some of these little butterflies. I cut these out of one of the pattern papers, and they will be embellishments on several cards. So this is where I'm saying that not using foam tape on the picket fence was kind of silly because I'm popping up these butterflies, but whatever. And this is where I'm going to use that Hero Arts Crystal Lacquer pen and add some dots onto my card. You could also use glossy accents, which would be great. You could use the crystal glaze from Nuvo, or you could use some of their clear drops from Nuvo. I just happen to have this on my desk, which is why I reached for it. This card kit had fantastic papers, and they were so much fun to work with. So it also had that great stamp set. So I stamped and with Versamark and clear heat embossed these images. Then I colored them with watercolors and fussy cut them out. One of the things I wish I had done was look at the paper and use colors that match the paper, because I just really used colors that I was like, oh, this will be pretty, and this is the color of this flower. So my background paper is 4 inches by 5¼ inches, and inside I believe it's 2 inches by, I want to say, 4¼ inches. It's like handwriting script right there. So I did use some of the paper that I really liked, the blue paper with the hexagons and stamped in gold heat embossed for your kindness. Most of these cards are thank you cards or for your kindness cards. I'm not really an I love you person for friends and people, so I try not to make those cards because I know I'm not going to give them away. Now, I did pop up part of that image with foam tape, and you saw that I put a little bit of glue on it just so I could move it around a little. And right now, I've got my one big brush marker from Faber-Castell. This is India Ink in Gray. It is a really old pen, not because I got it and never used it, but because it came from a kit that someone donated somewhere and was just pretty much dried up. So I went around the flower and I went around the sentiment just to try and make it pop a little bit more. And you can't really see it in the video, but it pops a lot more in real life. And it really does look like a shadow. I'm also using some of those crystal lacquer dots to put around on the paper and on the flower. Okay, so we have jumped onto card number 4. This is pretty much my favorite paper. So I stamped and gold heat embossed the sentiment thank you onto this medallion paper. And now I've sort of wonkied it. I've put it against my card base and I've cut off the extra. You also saw that I used that pen just to make it a little darker right around the sentiment. Now I've cut out a piece of paper that's just a little bit bigger than the medallion paper, and I'm going to use Versamark around the edges, and I'm going to gold heat emboss the edges. That way it's the same color as my sentiment, so everything matches. One of the other things that I did, and you'll see in a second, is use some very tiny Studio Katya 3mm clear droplets in the center of each one of the medallions. I think it would be fantastic if you had little gold gems. I just don't have any. And I didn't like the way the tiny sequins I had looked, which is why I chose to go with the clear gems. You could also go with Nuvo drops. I wouldn't recommend going with the pink just because nothing else here is pink on the card. So I have had a crazy summer. I got a concussion, and then while I had my concussion and I wasn't really using my computer decided to die, not in the physical or in the physical sense rather than the computer sense. So it just started breaking up. So partway through the summer, towards the beginning of summer actually, I got a new computer, which is what I'm using, which meant that I had to get new software and things because the software I had on my old computer wouldn't work on my new computer. So this is the first video I'm making on my new computer. I also had to figure out how to transfer some things, which is difficult when my old computer is literally falling apart and the fan doesn't work in the summer. So we're moving on to card number 5. I really like this card. This yellow paper, okay, maybe the yellow paper is my favorite. It's lots of birds that are sort of watercolored on top of each other, so they're layered up. I'm using the Modern Flowers background stamp, and I stamped with squeezed lemonade. Then I went in with one of the blending tools and just put some wild honey on top of it, so it's more of a two-tone look. I'm stamping my card base on there, and then what I did was heat set it to make sure it was dry. And you can see here I'm playing with the pieces how I think I want them, and you can tell that the yellow background is way too close to the yellow paper. And it probably would have made more sense just to use white paper at that point. You can see that it looks okay here, but I really like this background. So I have a full-size ink pad of Distress ink in Picket Fence. So I'm going to literally rub that all over my card and then heat set it, and then rub it all over it again and heat set it. This dulled down the color so that it wasn't the same shade. It was a lighter shade than my piece of paper. I also used the India ink marker to go around the edges so that there's a little bit more distinction. So this summer I also went to a conference which was really amazing, and connected with some people that I've known but not really had serious conversations with. So that was really nice. I had signed up to take a class on 3D printing because I did get 3D printers as a grant for my school. Unfortunately, then we had a family emergency and had to book it out to Wisconsin to go see my grandma, who unfortunately fell and broke her hip. So I never got to take that class. And now I'm back home getting ready for school again because that starts soon. It's been a really crazy summer, and I feel like time has just flown by, but it's been a good summer. Thankfully, my grandma's doing good. She's in a nursing home / rehab center. She's working on walking again, and you know, in a few months, they think she'll be back living with my aunt and uncle who are out in Wisconsin. So you also saw that I used that Pitt pen at the bottom just to add a little bit more shading at the bottom of the paper. That was sort of to ground it, and I'm also using the lacquer pen all over the bottle that says Farm Fresh. For these papers, I fishtailed the banner with scissors. I cut out the square pieces with a paper trimmer, and the circle was a circle of vellum that I had cut out a long time ago, but it had ripped partway through cutting it. So I had it stored in a drawer and I just pulled it out. Okay, we are moving on to card number 6. This is a pretty simple card. I cut out a panel that was 4 inches wide by I'm not sure how long, and then I cut it diagonally, you can see, with a paper trimmer. I used a circle die to cut out a circle, and this card base has been ink blended with a very light tan ink. I should have taken a little bit more care, but you know, it's handmade, not Hallmark. So it's a little bit splotchier than I would like. I popped up that piece of paper with foam tape, and now I've put some foam tape onto this painted image of I Think It Poppies in a pot. and I put glue on the back of the foam tape so I could slide it around a little bit. My sentiment says with thanks, and it's heat embossed using Brutus Monroe's Sky embossing powder. I think this was from the summer embossing powder collection. It's a very light blue and it matches the color of the paper really well. So now I'm just gluing that down, and I've also die cut a circle out of that blue hexagon paper, and I die cut 2 of them to see which I liked better. I'm going to put a little pink heart that matches the background paper in the middle of it and glue it down onto my card base. So next year I'm teaching all of the same classes that I taught this year, which is really exciting because I know what I'm teaching. Which sounds crazy, but last year I had taken the job and I didn't know all of the courses I was teaching. And right now at this time last year, I was learning how to teach one of the courses at a conference, which was really awesome and incredibly helpful. But also stressful because I didn't know what I was doing with computer science before last year. And now it's one of my favorite classes to teach. Here I'm using those lacquer drops, and I'm going sort of around the circle from a biggest dot to a smaller dot to smaller, smaller, and smallest. And you can't see those, but they look very nice in real life. I'm sorry. Okay, we have moved on to card number 7. The card sketch for this looks similar to the end result, but I'm not as happy with how the card looks. And I think it's just because when you're drawing things, you can sort of make unrealistic proportions that in this case looked a lot better. So I have layered this piece of cardstock over my card base, and I cut out sort of, a wonky piece. Now I'm putting some fun foam on the back of it just so it's layered up. And on the front of it, you can see that I have another piece of paper. This has butterflies, teapots, and teacups on it. That's cut out wonky as well. So those all sort of line up and work together. I have one of the painted little images that has poppies and just little greenery. And you can't see it because it's off screen, but I do have For Everything stamped on white paper, I think. Oh goodness. Okay, now I'm putting down the fun foam, and I'm putting it onto my card base. When I have something like this, I like to put the card base against the ground and then line things up. That way I know at least one end is parallel to my card base. So here I'm fishtailing my For Everything banner. I'm going to glue that down, and then I'm going to glue down my little colored pot. You may notice that for glue, I'm going between using Ranger Multimedia or Ranger Collage Medium in a tiny bottle and the Lawn Fawn glue. I really like this glue. It comes out easily, it's fun to work with, and it's just a joy to work with. I suspect it's very similar to the Gina K glue, which I would love to try. I just haven't had a chance to try. Some of the bubblegum pink or bubblegum blush Nuvo drops. I hit the back of the card to sort of level them out, and we are on to card number 8. Card number 8. This card base was stained, and I really have no idea how it was stained. I'm going to guess. Actually, I really don't know. It's very possible that it was the cat. She stepped on it and maybe smudged something, but who knows. So one of my main goals with this card was to cover up the spots. So I have a piece of paper that is 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches, and I cut a large circle out of it. I have these banners that I cut with some of the scrap paper, and I'm just going to layer those up. in the end, these banners are going to cover up the spot that's on the card base. And honestly, the spot isn't too bad on the video, but it was very evident in real life. You can see it there by my hand for a second, and now I'm still talking. By the corner. Okay, so I'm gluing this down, and then I'm going to come in with foam tape and cover the back of this. Oh wait, sorry, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put an acrylic block down, and I'm going to shape my sentiment along the edge of the acrylic block. It says, "A special gift for you." I'm going to end up gold heat embossing this. And then I do regret I came in with that India ink Faber-Castell pen and with the gray and colored over it. And again, remember, this is a really old pen that doesn't work all the time, and I should probably throw out, but I just got it. So it's going to go on really, really, really darkly. Whereas before, when I was using it, I guess I was holding the pen differently and it didn't go on as darkly. So I wanted you to see A Special Gift for You more because you couldn't really see it. It was sort of the same tone as the background paper, but I didn't want it to be the gray to be that evident. So here I'm using the bubblegum blush Nuvo drops, and I'm going around the circle with the largest dots by the sentiment and the smallest drops away from it. I'm hitting the back of the paper and flattening them out a little. And now I'm thinking, you know, the card is still pretty barren. It would be nice if there was something else. So some of these little butterflies that I cut out, I'm going to glue down. So I'm actually going to glue 3 of these down. These match the colors in the paper, except for the dark blue one. There's no dark blue on this paper. So that one doesn't totally match, but it's okay. It looks great. It's very pretty. It's a simple design. It would be a great way to use up some paper. We are moving on to card number 9. So one of the things you'll notice in this video is there's 11 cards filmed. So when I got back from Wisconsin, one of the things I sort of wanted to do was use up some stuff. I have a bunch of little images that I've colored and cut out either by hand or die cut, and I sort of save them because I've done them. They look nice, but the cat knocks them over a lot, so they just need to go. So I've been on a kick of using stuff up. So I was working on these cards. I made 10, and then I made 11, and then I was like, oh, I have 10 made. I can stop filming now. So I stopped filming, and then I made a 12th card. And then I realized, oh yeah, at the end of these videos, I show you what's left over. So I will keep going with this kit and use more of it up because it's an awesome kit, but I don't want to have all of these pieces of paper lying around. I really want to try and use up some of the consumables so they're not just hanging around. It's one of my things that I really just need to get rid of. So this card is using some more of my favorite papers. I really, again, love the geometric papers. So the blue background paper is stripes, and one of the things that you'll see is if you look closely, if you have the paper, there's actually script on it. It's very light, it's very distressed, but you can see it. I cut this out, I think, 1/2 inch smaller on each side and put it on, so I'm not sure the actual dimensions. My banner was cut out with the medallion paper. The yellow is those yellow birds, and I've stamped with black ink for everything and clear heat embossed. I popped up with foam tape my little image, and now I'm using the clear lacquer drops, both on the flower to give it sort of dewdrops and above my sentiment. Now we're on to card number 10. This is a very simple card, and again, I think it would be great to make 2 of these with the pieces of paper. So here I've done what I did with one of the other cards, the other blue card, the first blue card. I created my own gold paper, and I'm gluing that down onto this piece of paper with the butterflies. Then I'm going to glue down a piece of the blue striped paper. I'm going to use scissors to trim it off, and you'll see that I use foam tape to pop it up onto my card base. It would have been better to use fun foam, but the foam tape was out, so I used that. And I say fun foam because then you would have very clear, even support on it. And I suspect, without having done the math totally, that fun foam is a little bit more economical than foam tape. I'm using a little bit of foam tape to pop up my image. Now, I stamped and heat embossed this with the rose gold from Altenew and then fussy cut it out. So it's very simple. I think it would be great if you colored it. And if I had one colored in the same colors as the paper, I would have used that. I just, again, was sort of on a roll and I wanted to keep going instead of stop and color. So I'm going to glue this down, and then I'm going to take some more of the little butterflies that I have cut out, and I'm going to pop 3 of them up with some foam tape on top of the paper. But before I do that, I'm going to stamp with VersaFine ink with thanks with black ink. I think it would be great to gold heat emboss it, but I'd already layered my papers and glued everything down and used the foam tape, so I didn't really want to do that. Now here I'm adding some dots along the bottom, 3 dots along the bottom and 3 dots along this other edge. So one of the things I was supposed to do this summer was do my class on 3D printing and then go to Wisconsin, visit family, but also go out with some of them to the Black Hills. I was really excited to do that because I haven't been there. Unfortunately, the timing and everything didn't work out. And one of the things that was frustrating for me personally was I was just leaving Wisconsin, Minnesota when Junkie Fest was just starting. So a lot of you were posting online and everything that, oh, I'm there, this is so exciting, and I'm waving goodbye as my plane's taking off. So next year, if there's a Junkie Fest, which I hope there is, I do hope to take part in it. I think that would be a lot of fun. One of the other things that happened while I was out there, of course, it was sort of an emergency trip. So I sort of randomly threw things into my bag, was I fell back in love with watercoloring. So you'll probably maybe see some more watercoloring than you have seen. Okay, so we've moved on to bonus card number 11. I'm still filming because even though I know I filmed 10 cards, I haven't internalized that yet. So I'm using, I believe, spiced marmalade, picked raspberry, and mustard seed to create a background. I felt like these colors were very similar to the colors that you can see on tulips. And I knew that I wanted to stamp and white heat emboss the tulip bouquet that is in the stamp set. So I wanted the colors in the background to match what the colors of the tulip could possibly be. Tulips have a really fascinating history. If you haven't read about that and the Dutch and the tulip crash, I would really recommend it. There's a book, and I want to call it Forbidden Fruit or 4 Plants That Have Shaped History. It's really fascinating. It's about potatoes. It's about marijuana, the plant, not the drug really. It's about tulips and something else, apples, and the effects they've had on history. And I really wish I could remember who wrote it, but it's a really fascinating book. I say as someone who has a botany degree, so plants are really fascinating. I used some dies to cut out a frame, and I'm going to cut out my background paper that I made a little bit smaller than my frame so that I can glue it down to my card base and then pop the frame up with foam tape and the frame won't show, or the background won't show. So now I've cut this out. I'm going to treat it with I'm going to make sure it's completely dry by using my heat tool. I believe I also dump some embossing powder on it just to make sure nothing sticks to it. And of course, when I do this, nothing sticks to it. And then I go and heat emboss it, and stuff sticks to it. So, yay! So I've used my anti-static powder tool. Here I'm going to pull out that stamp, and I'm going to realize immediately that the stamp block I pulled out is way too small. So I pull out my large Fisker stamp press stamp block, and now I'm just going to stamp that and white emboss it with, I believe, Wow Bright White Opaque Embossing Powder. This is a great embossing powder. It's very bright white. It's super fine, so it's got great detail. I am using a brush to take off the extra that's stuck elsewhere, and in a second I heat emboss it. So I'm going to glue that down to the center of my card, and I'm going to use foam tape to put down my frame. I'm going to stamp with VersaFine ink "Thank You" onto a small piece of paper and fishtail the ends to create a little banner. I'm going to glue that down onto the edge of the frame and use foam tape where it's on the background. And for the background, I'm going to add some little droplets. So the larger droplets are 4mm droplets from Pretty Pink Posh, and the smaller droplets are 3mm droplets from Studio Katia. If you don't have droplets, these are little, I think, acrylic or resin droplets that are super adorable. They look like droplets of water. I would highly recommend them. Of course, you can use something like Nuvo drops to get something very similar. I just think it's easier to put down these little droplets in specific spots when you want something that you know is completely transparent and you want something that's a very uniform size. And for me, very importantly, it won't take on the color of the background. So I'm using the collage medium, which dries incredibly fast. Not instantly, but I'm putting down a small amount so it dries really fast. So it's not taking on the color of the background. Here's the leftovers. I have 2 full sheets of paper. I have the embossed cardstock from Tonic, and I have a bunch of leftovers. And here are 12 cards that I made using this card kit. I, again, will make more cards, and I don't know, maybe I'll share them on Instagram. I do have an account, but I'm not very good at sharing things. It's a Verdant Crafter account on Instagram if you'd like to look me up. Here are some close-up of the cards. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that you are having a fantastic summer. Happy August. It's, getting close to September. So if you're a teacher, I hope you're enjoying. If you're a parent, I hope that you're getting ready. If you're just a human, I hope that August is going well for you. Thank you again. I hope that you have a great day. This is Gretchen, the Verdant Crafter. Goodbye.